Hi friends. Today we want to talk about a classic, rather probably the classic, the book regarded by most people and most surveys to be the greatest novel ever written by a mortal man. I am talking about Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. In most Western countries, it is undisputedly agreed that it is the greatest book written. I started reading this, and I have a very personal attachment with this in the sense that uh, I started reading this when I was around 19 or 20. Okay, and let me just say, it's a 1200 plus pages book. Okay, with some 500 odd characters. Though essentially, it's a story of three people: Henry, Natasha, and Sergei. So in a sense, it's only three characters, but it's usually if you find most surveys will hype it up as saying 500 odd characters, so because there are a lot of subplots and a lot of sub characters. Now the whole point was that I bought this accidentally, because you see the book that I bought had a photograph of Napoleon Bonaparte. So I thought, well, it's about, and I read the synopsis and Napoleon's invasion of Russia. I said, very exciting, war, action. And I took this up. I thought, well, the more the number of pages, the more the action. And frankly, it was not very costly. So I said, 1200 pages book for I don't know what, 300-400 rupees, value for money, good pages of action. And I started reading it, and I read it and read it. And you see, what happened was there was a school teacher of English teacher of mine who actually turned me towards reading books. Okay, till then I was never really much of a reader. I was reading all sorts of crappy stuff like Sydney. Those, what do you call it? Hardy Boys, Nancy Drews, Doctor Woos, and some Archies. And this English teacher in around class 7th or something, it and all started encouraging me to read good books. And then you go back to school sometimes when you're in college and you just try to meet your old teachers and just try to show off. So I took War and Peace along with me. Okay, and this teacher saw it and said, "Hey, have you read War and Peace?" And I was almost done. I said, "Yeah." She said, "You know what? That's my mission in life, to read it, because that book is one book that I could never read. It is so, thick and exhausting and such depth, and that is still one of the proudest moments of my life. And it changed me forever because you see, till then I had read one or two heavy books on a lark, but that gave me such an ego boost that for the first time I realized that if you can read a good book, people respect you for it. So, honestly speaking, very, very unbiasedly, that moment turned me into a much more of a stronger avid reader. Now I finished War and Peace, and when I read it through, it was like a saga that I didn't want it to end. I'm sure many great people in life will, agree with what I'm saying. One name comes to mind: Mahatma Gandhi. I don't know how many of you know, but Mahatma Gandhi considered Tolstoy as his probably the greatest guru. He wrote numerous lessons to him, and War and Peace, as it begins, in a very dramatic warlike manner with Napoleon is invading Russia, and the whole society of Russia is debating how do we take on him and everything, and then it has such a huge amount of war and action in the backdrop of a love story, etc. But towards the end, you find Tolstoy, you know, without being vocal about it, in a more subtle manner, and toward in the end chapters and the end essays that he's written, very open about non-violence. And Tolstoy's non-violence is what shaped up Gandhiji's non-violence. Gandhiji wrote numerous letters to Tolstoy, and one of his biggest desires was to, in any manner, ever meet Tolstoy and bow to him because he considered Tolstoy as guru. So this book, you see, and Tolstoy. very, very, very heavily inspired Gandhiji. And in that sense, I believe it should be, at least in some sort of an abridged form, taught to every Indian. It has a huge role in India's history. Gandhiji's um, first home in South Africa was, I think, called Tolstoy farm, and that is how much he revered him. And there is a huge collection of letters to and fro between him and Tolstoy. Tolstoy also thinking that, this man here understands me and understands my values. So War and Peace is the beginning of that all. When I read it at that time, I read it like an action thriller, and I tell you, for all this stuff, intimidation by 1200 pages something, sorry sir, it was value for money for me. That is the most amazingly elaborate, detailed thrill that I could get. It, towards the end, was I able to fathom all of the essays? No. In the last 2 decades, as I've read more and understood more, when I flipped through it again, I could get a lot of what Gandhi would have probably inspired Gandhi. I could now understand that when you, what you're trying to also was trying to prove was to build up war as a very exciting thing, and in the end, try to show you how futile and devastating it is, and to show you also that, you see, one man's non-violence can change it all. Because Tolstoy, you see, after this book and its influence on his own life, went into a kind of an, you can say, countryside ashram, and started living a extremely, what do you want to call it, ascetic life, which was later heavily copied again by his disciple Gandhiji. Okay, so War and Peace did not is one of those books that did not just teach other people, but as Tolstoy wrote War and Peace, it changed him as a person. One person who really benefited from reading War and Peace was Tolstoy himself. That is the level of depth of the book. And it shows to me that depth of a book can be brought about in a very exciting manner. And the most exciting part is this, that you do not need to get intimidated by a book which is 1200 pages. The way I reacted to it when I was 1920 could also be a way. 1200 pages, value for money, good action. Just like you see that 7 hours series of Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter and say, excellent, 7 hours of entertainment. I vouch for War and Peace as an extremely beautiful entertainer. If you are a boy, if you are interested in action, if you appreciate all of this Game of Thrones, if you want to go find a book which is more exciting, check out War and Peace. And subtly, without you knowing it, this book will touch your inner soul and make you realize the beauty of non-violence, the beauty of avoiding war, and the absolute futility of it, without you having to be subjected to boring essays. Towards the end, I don't deny, when the story winds up, Tolstoy goes unleashed into a huge number of pages, okay, and which is just pure, what do you want to call it, moralizing. Maybe you can skip that part if you got the essence, or maybe you can listen through it, because if that affects you and interests you. But all in all, definitely, I thought it then and I agree today, it is the best book written by a mortal man. I have other books by Tolstoy also. I have almost read everything from Tolstoy, and another book from Tolstoy is also going to make this list, and that speaks volumes for a man. When you start off by saying, I am going to talk about 5 classics that I have loved, okay, and 2 of them find place in your list by one single author, And despite my repeatedly thinking, maybe I should make only one vlog for the two of them and put in another person on the side, and you still go ahead and do it. Make it two separate vlogs because these are two classics by the same man that tells you undisputedly that I believe, like many of the in the world believe, that there is very less competition for Russian literature. There has been, I mean, it's always been agreed that the best literary sources have been the Russians, the Tolstoy, the Pushkin, and Dostoevsky. And when I'm making two blogs for one man out of five, that just tells you the level of regard I have for him. And if you all understand, and if you just Google about the kind of regard Gandhi had for him, it would automatically make you seem that there is something in the man and there is something in the book. So please go and read it if you haven't already.